Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, Johnny Blues. And with this video, I'll discuss my thoughts on episode 5 of the anime series, Alice to Zouroku. And damn, man, if this was an all-out, knockdown, dragged-out battle between Ichijo and Mini C, respectively, they were throwing down almost the entirety of the length of the episode, and I was just absolutely gripped and compelled by this back and forth mashup. Mini C calling forth so many of those disembodied arms of her, sort of the memories, the dreams of Alice memories of her, former husband who had been taken from her and everything. And it just absolutely blew my mind and astounded me. We finally have an answer to whom that was in the very first episode, who came and saved Sana when Mini C was sort of the first line of recapturing her. This particular mystery girl who showed up and also had a dream of Alice ability that was blue, whereas all the rest of the girls, their little crystalline latticework thing, as I describe it, that they summon forth to call forth their dreams of Alice abilities, were pink. And it ends up being Ichijo, or at least an offshoot of her. One of the sort of dreams of Alice powers manifest that she can summon forth. This anime sort of character, anime girl, in the maid outfit and everything, that apparently sort of got into her, weaved its way into her subconscious when she was falling asleep doing homework or something like that. And it blew my mind that, she's got so many cards apparently that she can manipulate. It's not so many cards necessarily as it is the character of that anime girl maid, that hostess, whatever you want to call it, from that show that got into her subconscious, could, pull forth a whole bunch of different magic portals that she could reach into and pull things out of. And so this left an impression on Ichijo and created sort of an extension of her own dreams of Alice abilities, where she can almost summon forth anything. She can just summon forth these portals and reach in and pull anything out. And it seems like there's hundreds upon hundreds of them as far as options goes for Ichijo, how far and wide she can actually, command it and what she can pull out of it. And it like I said, it blew my mind. It gobsmacked me. And Mini C, I gotta admit, I went from 2 episodes ago feeling somewhat for her because of the loss of her husband and how she expressed that sort of reserved mourning and everything like that. But then the previous episode, she was really hellacious and scathing, and I was like, all bets are off. In my episode discussion video for the previous, I said, all bets are off. She is not redeemable. She is not, earning of any sort of level of sympathy with the way she's treating Sana and such like that. And I stand by feeling that way in the previous episode. That's how that episode made me feel. In this episode, I'm kind of leaning a little bit back toward feeling for her by the end of it. I'm somewhat surprised to say, because, were it not for her own recognition that she had run off the rails, to use, I'm paraphrasing, but to use her own terminology, she now understands she let the madness and the corruption of that absolute power, corrupting absolutely, she got carried away with herself. She let it run amok, and she understands that now. Does that mean she will necessarily rebound, dial it back, become a heroine of any sort? Who knows? I have no idea, frankly. She's air quotes, arrested by the end and probably incarcerated. And who knows exactly what that will entail. Maybe the sort of governmental faculty that is studying the dreams of Alice in the antithesis, where, the research facility seem to be more malevolent in their design and holding of these children and everything. It seems like the cats that, Zouroku was familiar with, Ichijo is a part of, they were a little more benevolent. And we do find out there's an almost storybook quality by the end, where you have Sanai, I believe it is, narrating, explaining that they shut down. They managed to successfully shut down, as a result of all of this, that research facility. And I can only then but guess that all the rest of these children with these dreams of Alice abilities maybe were taken, into the care of this facility that, Zouroku's buddy is a part of and such like that. maybe along the lines of rehabilitation. And maybe that's something that might conform to Minnie C as well. I don't know if she is that far gone. If she has the cognizance and the recognition to understand that she really lost herself because of all of this, maybe she is actually redeemable. I really did feel sympathetic toward her, much more so in this episode, especially when she breaks down. And there's that line, the tipping point for me was that line when she breaks down crying, and as she's choking a gasp, she says to herself as well as to her husband, "I'm sorry I'm still alive. I'm sorry that my life has to go on without you," you know, and as somebody who has lost people in his life, you know, I could really, it was resonating for me. I could really, you know, sympathize with that and empathize with that. And it actually did get me a little misty, because we're seeing those memories of, you know, just having breakfast with her husband, just sitting at the table, his hugging her. And then there's that shot of her wearing what looks to be a wedding gown. And it really got to me at this point. And so I got to kind of dial it back a little bit. She recognized how run amok she had become, how monstrous she had become. And at least there's the glimmer of hope of redemption, of making better, of learning from your mistakes. For Minnie C, I can only hope. And for that, even with that spectacular battle going back and forth, of course, I wasn't rooting for her to beat Ichijo in any estimation. I was just impressed with the fight she put up, and that it wasn't so divisive and clear cut immediately, you know, with Ichijo coming in. There was a fight that ensued, and you know, Sana and Zouroku had to get out of there just by the skin of their teeth. I like the product placement of the Snickers, by the way, for Sana to rejuvenate her dreams of Alice's ability, and then it takes on a very, again, storybook quality, a magical air, kind of reminding me, going back to the 1978 Superman film with Christopher Reeve. There's that whole romantic flight over the nighttime cityscape between Superman and Lois Lane when she wants to interview him. And we kind of had something similar, not, of course, in a romantic sense in this episode, but an empathetic, compassionate, familial sense. Do we have Sana celebrating her freedom, in a sense, and having been so welcomed and taken in by the very compassionate Zouroku and Sanai, by sort of whisking she and Zouroku up into the heavens and just soaring over this cityscape in a similar fashion. And it was just beautiful, you know. It was very much what I kind of needed. The other leg dropping of satisfaction and ease and freedom and all of that love and compassion in a very celebratory sense. And so, I mean, this episode was spectacular from beginning to end as far as I'm concerned. And it really did move me in being much more empathetic and sympathetic toward Minnie C again. I don't know if that spells out that she is redeemable. I don't know if that makes up for everything she has thus far, you know, what has transpired, what she has concocted and enacted for these very selfish purposes. But, you know, again, as someone who has lost people in his life, I mean, there are times when you would consider it all bets are off, that you would probably do anything. You would go far and beyond, you know, even your own usual limitations if you knew there was any hope, if you held any hope of seeing someone you had lost again. And that's kind of what's fueling Minnie C's fire. But again, it really run amok. It had gotten away with her. Madness had ensued and claimed the day, and only now, with this whip smack, you know, crash boom bang of meeting face to face and toe to toe with Ichijo and her alternate incarnation, this anime girl maid form, as I say, going back to the first episode, answering to that this is an offshoot of Ichijo. You know, were it not for that, she would not have necessarily become aware of just how far down the rabbit hole she had fallen, and how much of that power had consumed her, and how lost she had become. And so yeah, I've dialed it back to saying she's far beyond any, you know, redeemability, Two, at least she was much more sympathetic, and I was much more empathetic toward her for her motivations and for her realization that, oh man, I lost myself here. I'm so sorry. And I'm sorry, to her husband, I'm sorry that I have survived beyond you, because life is almost not worth living with you not in it. And for anyone who has ever felt that way, whether it be, having been dumped or someone having passed away in your life, you can only but relate to that. And especially seeing her breaking down, crashing under the weight of that madness, finally almost as if to be peeking out from the dark clouds that had surrounded her and consumed her all these many years. It was like, oh, damn. I really feel bad for her. And everything else was just fantastic. Even though we leave it off, it's interesting because, of course, we start the episode with the cat from the research facility getting a phone call saying that they've made off with Sana and, Zouroku and everything. The Red Queen or whatever has been taken. And then the whole episode ensues showing how that came about. And then we're told from Sanai's narration that, well, everything is all said and done. Everything is all, happily ever after, kind of. And I was like, what was this, the end of the show? Is this somehow how are we ending it now? What's going to be next if this research facility has been torn asunder, and it's no longer a thing? It's no longer viable to the story. Well, what happens next? And there is that final shot, of course, of Ichijo and Zouroku's buddy in the car, and he's like, man, the calm, the soothing, the peacefulness, I almost wish something else would happen. It's like, okay, what's going to happen? Well, I almost expected the car to blow up, where like a giant, anvil to come crashing down on top of it, killing him, crushing him, something like that. Thankfully, it didn't end that way, because I like the air of mystery, like, wow, what is going to be the next step? If that's no longer a thing, if the threat of that organization is no longer a thing, what is the next step? Are we going to get around to like, a Dreams of Alice versus Dreams of Alice thing, where all these girls start pitting against each other, they run amok, for the supremacy of the all-powerful Dreams of Alice ability? I have no idea. Maybe other governments will get involved. We know that America was at some point involved with the research facility and studying that and everything like that. Maybe we will be introduced to other characters with these abilities, and it could just be a versus thing. I really have no idea. And that is the most intriguing aspect by the end, that it almost felt like, well, this was the final episode, and we still have so many left. So I don't know. All I know is I enjoyed this episode heavily. I was that much more emotionally invested in Minnie C's whole plight, with her being snapped to, smacked back to reality at the hands of Ichijo and her alternate offshoot persona, this maid girl and everything. And again, I just loved it. It really warmed my heart, that sequence toward the end, with Sana and Zouroku in the sky, floating above the cityscape, and just the miracle of that, was very much well captured in that moment. Zouroku he was astounded. And it was very celebratory. It was Sana embracing her freedom and her newfound family. I like that he actually says, I've gained another granddaughter. And then you have Sanai in the car crying, bawling her eyes out when he says, I think Sanai will be happy. Yeah, no crap. And the only other footnote is the character of Yamada, the computer girl that was working with Ichijo. I thought she was a blast in this episode. All of her reactions and just like being very loud-mouthed and sort of impetuous verbally, thinking in terms of, just how spectacular Ichijo is with all her abilities and everything, and trying to lead her to finding Minnie C. I thought that was all funny as hell. And so yeah, I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this particular episode of Alice to Zouroku as well, episode 5, if you felt about it the way I did, if you related at all with Minnie C's plight, if you still consider her all bets are off, she's irredeemable, and she's, a bitch, and throw away, lock her away, throw away the key, that kind of thing, love her to hate it, anything goes in the comments below. Just love having that conversation. Otherwise, that'll be pretty much it for me on this. Hope this video finds you well, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.